welcome to your sleep story. I'm so glad you're here tonight. Whatever this day was, however long it felt, however much it carried, it is behind you now, completely behind you. You made it through, and that is everything. So let's begin. Before I take you anywhere tonight, I want to count you down from 10 to 1. And as I count, I want you to allow yourself to sink just a little deeper into wherever you are right now. Feel the weight of your body. Feel what is beneath you, holding you. And with each number, just let go a little more. 10. Allow your eyes to close, gently, completely. There is nothing you need to see right now. 9. Feel your shoulders and let them drop as far as they want to go. 8. A slow breath in through the nose. 7. And all the way out. 6. Your hands. Feel them opening. Whatever you've been holding today, you can put it down now. 5. Your jaw is soft. Your face is soft. 4. Your legs are heavy, warm. 3. You're drifting, not asleep yet, but moving that way. 2. The day is behind you, completely and entirely behind you. 1. And now, tonight's sleep story, the relaxation. Before we go anywhere, I want to stay here with you for a moment. Just here, just now, because this moment, this exact moment right now, where you are lying in the quiet, deserves a little attention, a little kindness. Take a breath in for me, from the very bottom of the belly. Good. And let it go. And as you breathe out, I want you to imagine that everything you were carrying today, every worry, every unfinished thought, every heavy thing is just leaving with that breath, just drifting away. You don't have to solve anything tonight. You don't have to figure anything out. You don't have to be anything other than exactly what you are right now. A person who deserves rest. A person who deserves sleep. Because you do. You really do. Whatever happened today, however hard it felt, however much it carried, you made it through. You are here. And that is enough. That is more than enough. You are safe. And you are here. Bring your awareness gently to your feet now. Just notice them and allow them to soften. The toes uncurling, the arches releasing. All the small held tension of the day simply letting go. Let that softness travel upward, through the calves, through the knees, the thighs. All of it warm. All of it heavy, all of it resting now. Your lower back, your hips. Allow yourself to feel the surface beneath you taking your weight completely, fully. You don't have to hold yourself up anymore. The earth has you. The island has you. The belly soft. The chest soft. The heart beating steadily as it always has. As it always will. Your shoulders dropping, your arms heavy and warm, your hands open and still, the neck long and loose, and your face, let the jaw go. Let the forehead smooth. Let the eyes be completely still behind their lids. There you are, from the top of your head to the tips of your toes, completely soft, completely warm, completely at rest. You've done beautifully. Now, let me take you somewhere the Atlantic wraps entirely around a small island of black volcanic rock and impossible green, and a whitewashed cottage with blue painted borders sits above a small harbor, and an old woman who has lived her whole life on this island sits by her kitchen stove in the evening, listening to the wind and the sea and the sound of her own particular silence, which is different from any other silence anywhere else in the world. Come with me. The approach by sea. Imagine approaching an island by ferry. Not a large ferry, a modest inter-island vessel, the kind that connects the 9 inhabited islands of the Azores archipelago to each other across the wide, deep, intensely blue water of the mid-Atlantic. The kind of ferry that has been making these crossings for generations. Its schedule dictated as much by weather as by any printed timetable. The Azores sit in the Atlantic, roughly equidistant between Europe and North America. One of the most geographically isolated inhabited archipelagos on Earth. The volcanic peaks of their 9 islands rising from water that is, beneath them, among the deepest in the world. São Miguel, the largest. Terceira, where the old capital stands. Pico, with its perfect volcanic cone. Vale, the blue island, its houses painted in that particular hydrangea blue that visitors photograph endlessly without quite being able to explain why it moves them. Tonight's destination is smaller than any of these. A remote island. One of the archipelago's quieter ones, its population modest, its harbor small enough that the inter-island ferry must anchor some distance off and send passengers ashore by tender. Its highest point, a green volcanic ridge often lost in cloud. The ferry slows as the island's silhouette resolves from the evening haze. Dark volcanic rock at the waterline, surf breaking white against it. Above the rock, the green extraordinary, saturated, almost unreal in its intensity. The green of a volcanic island in the mid-Atlantic, where rainfall is generous, and the soil, built from basalt, grows things with an almost impatient generosity. And scattered across that green, the white shapes of houses, their blue-bordered windows and doors visible even at this distance. The characteristic Azorean aesthetic, simple and deeply pleasing. The white of the lime-washed walls brilliant against the surrounding green. The tender carries you ashore. You step onto a small stone pier. The island receives you. The harbor, small, genuinely small, perhaps a dozen fishing boats, their hulls painted in the bright, individual colors that Atlantic fishing communities have always brought to their vessels. Blue and red, and a deep, warm orange. Each boat different from its neighbors in color, if similar in basic form. The harbor wall, built from the same dark volcanic basalt as the island's own rock. Its surface worn smooth at the top, where fishermen have sat and stood and leaned across more generations than any surviving record can precisely account for. The smell of the harbor this evening, salt and diesel, and the particular rich smell of fish, not unpleasant, simply present. The ambient fragrance of a harbor that has been a fishing harbor since the island was first settled by Portuguese colonists in the 15th century. The smell of its primary industry absorbed so thoroughly into the stone of the harbor wall that it would take considerably more than a single evening without a catch to entirely dispel it. And above the harbor smell, threading through it on whatever light evening breeze is moving from the ocean, something sweet, hydrangeas, the Azores' most visible and most pervasive flower, lining every road and field boundary and garden edge across every island in the archipelago. Their enormous flower heads in every shade of blue and purple and pink and white. The blooms here not quite at their summer peak, perhaps, but still present enough that their fragrance carries, faintly but distinctly, even down to the harbor's waterline. You walk up from the harbor, along the single road that leads through the islands, one small village, toward the upper part of the settlement, where the older cottages stand closer to the green ridge above. The village, a single road, whitewashed houses with blue-painted window surrounds and door frames, hydrangeas everywhere, beside every gate, around every door, spilling over every low stone wall that divides one garden from another. The stone itself, the same dark basalt as the harbor wall, the same as every wall and building foundation on this island, the only building material the island's own volcanic geology reliably provides. The road is steep in places, the island's terrain allowing for little genuinely flat ground anywhere above the immediate waterline. A small church, its facade the same white and blue as everything else, its single bell tower holding a bell that the village's small congregation would recognize immediately by its particular tone, exactly as Pieter's town recognizes its own Borden, exactly as the two riverside villages of the border town recognize their paired church bells calling across the water to each other. A cafe, its lights still on, its few evening customers visible through the open window, old men mostly. At this hour, their conversation, a low, comfortable murmur in the particular dialect of Portuguese that these islands have developed across 5 centuries of relative isolation into something subtly distinct from the continental variety. And above the village, on the slope that climbs toward the ridge, a cottage, older than most of the houses visible from the road, its walls somewhat thicker, the lime wash slightly more irregular in its surface. The blue of its window surrounds a slightly deeper, more faded shade than the fresher paint of newer buildings. A single lamp burning in the kitchen window. The first breath, the cottage door, when you push it open at the neighbor's quiet invitation. The island's small population practices a hospitality that does not require much prior acquaintance, simply the mutual recognition of someone known or vouched for by someone known. opens onto a smell that is immediately, entirely specific to this place and this time of year. Wood smoke first, the kitchen's small stove, burning the island's own wood, the Azorean laurel, Laurus azorica, a tree native to the Macaronesian islands, its wood dense and fragrant, burning with a dark, clean flame that gives off a slightly different quality of smoke from the European species you might have encountered in the Welsh cottage or the Bhutanese farmhouse. Slightly more resinous, slightly more floral, somehow, as though the laurel carries something of its living fragrance forward, even into combustion. Beneath the laurel smoke, the sea. You cannot escape the sea smell on an island this small and this surrounded. It comes through the walls, under the doors, through the single kitchen window left slightly open despite the evening's chill, simply because on an island whose entire population has lived always within sight and sound and smell of the Atlantic, closing the window fully against the sea smell would feel like closing a door on a family member. Bread recently baked, the particular sweet, substantial smell of Azorean sweet bread. Massa cevada, the braided sweet bread enriched with egg and sugar, and a little fat, baked for ordinary evenings and for festivals alike. Its smell one of the most specific and most comforting in the whole archipelago's domestic life. And beneath all of this, the walls themselves, thick volcanic stone holding the accumulated warmth and smell and history of a cottage that has been occupied continuously for well over 100 years, perhaps considerably more, the walls having absorbed everything that has ever been cooked and spoken, and felt within them into their own deep mineral patience. You sit at the kitchen table. A cup of tea appears in front of you, poured without asking, because on this island, when you sit down in someone's kitchen, tea appears. It always has. Dione Rosa. She is 84 years old. Her name is Dona Rosa. She was born in this cottage, in the bedroom just off the kitchen, 84 years ago. The fourth child of a fishing family whose name has been on this island for at least 6 generations, possibly more. The early settlement records are incomplete, as they so often are in small island communities where births and deaths were recorded by whoever was available to record them, and not always with perfect completeness. She has left the island twice in her life, once as a young woman, traveling to Lisbon for medical treatment that the island's own modest facilities could not provide, once in her 50s to visit her eldest daughter, who married a man from another Azorean island and settled there. Both times, she returned as quickly as the practical circumstances permitted, not from any dramatic sense of devotion or any principled resistance to travel, but simply because this particular piece of Atlantic rock and this particular cottage on it and the particular quality of sound and smell and light that this specific island produces was where she was from in a way that made everywhere else feel not unwelcoming exactly, but but simply and obviously elsewhere. She has spent her life here. She does not consider this a small life. Her husband, Giulio, a fisherman, died 12 years ago. Her children are scattered, some on this island still, some on other islands, one in Lisbon, one in Brazil. She lives alone in the cottage now, her days organized around the rhythms that have organized them for as long as she can clearly remember. The stove, the garden, the visits from neighbors, and the occasional grandchild who comes to stay. The daily walk to the small harbor and back. The twice-weekly cafe conversation over the coffee that her doctor has mildly, but entirely unsuccessfully, been suggesting she reduce for the past decade. She is sitting now at her own kitchen table, a cup of the same tea in her own hands, looking out at the evening through the kitchen window, at the dark shape of the harbor and the darker shape of the ocean beyond it. The kitchen, low ceiling, the exposed beams of old Azorian wood, dark with the years of kitchen smoke that have passed beneath them. The stove, a small cast iron range, all burning now rather than the wood-burning stove it replaced several decades ago. Though Donna Rosa still keeps a small quantity of laurel wood for the particular evenings when she wants the specific warmth and smell of the old way. And tonight is apparently one of those evenings. The kitchen, holding the particular fragrance she was raised with rather than the cleaner, less specifically atmospheric warmth of the oil stove. A wooden table, scrubbed and worn in the center by many decades of meals and the preparation of meals. Chairs of a mismatched set, added to across various years as originals wore out, each one now as familiar in its particular slight wobble or slight different seat height as any of the others. On the wall above the stove, a small shelf holds a collection of ceramic pieces. Several plates, hand-painted in the local style, their patterns the same blue and white that appears on the cottage's exterior woodwork, on the church's facade, on every horizontal surface in this village that receives its traditional painted decoration. And in the corner of the kitchen, a small radio, its volume turned low, playing fado, the particular melancholy, musically sophisticated Portuguese song tradition that feels, on these islands, completely natural and completely appropriate. Its themes of saudade, of longing for what is distant or lost, resonating with a particular depth in communities that have always understood distance and loss through the specific, felt experience of ocean separation. The fado plays very softly. Donna Rosa listens, or doesn't listen with equal ease. It is simply there, the way the sea sound is simply there, a continuous, familiar presence in the room's general warmth. The sound of the island, AT evening. Let me tell you specifically about the sounds this island makes as the evening deepens. The ocean first and always. On an island this size, with no point more than a few kilometers from water in any direction, the ocean is never entirely absent from the auditory landscape. It shifts in character, rises and falls in volume with the wind and the tide, and the particular direction from which the Atlantic happens to be arriving on any given evening. But it is always there, in the background or the foreground, the continuous, patient, ancient sound of the North Atlantic's own enormous breathing. Tonight it arrives from the west, where the open ocean begins its enormous unbroken run toward North America, and the sound it makes against the island's western cliffs is a deep, continuous, resonant surge. Not the harsh crash of storm waves, not tonight. Simply the ordinary, steady, enormously powerful arrival of very large swells from a very large ocean, each one meeting the basalt cliff face with a sound somewhere between a sigh and a detonation, the impact absorbed and dispersed by the black rock, and then replaced, moments later, by the next. The wind, tonight a light, warm wind from the southwest, carrying moisture from the open ocean, and the faint, floral sweetness of the hydrangeas that line every road and field boundary within a kilometer of this cottage. A cow somewhere behind the village, giving voice once, then falling quiet, the island's small dairy herd managed in the traditional Azorean way. Their milk producing the butter and cheese that have been staples of island cooking since the first settlers established their first herds on this volcanic ground. A dog further down the hill, settling for the night, and from inside the cottage, the fathu, very soft, and the occasional tick of the old stove, and the sound of Dona Rosa's cup being set down on the wooden table, with the particular small sound of someone entirely at home in their own kitchen. The garden through the kitchen window, visible now only as shapes against the evening dark. The cottage's garden extends down the slope behind the house. In the day's light, it would show you a dense, productive planting vegetables in the Azorean tradition, the same varieties that generations of island families have grown in the same basalt-walled plots since the archipelago's settlement. Cabbages and beans and potatoes, and the sweet peppers that dry in long strings against every south-facing wall in the autumn. Fruit trees, a fig, a lemon, a small quince trained against the south wall, where the volcanic rock absorbs the sun's warmth and radiates it back through the night, giving the trees slightly more heat than the surrounding air alone would provide. And flowers, everywhere flowers, not the hydrangeas, those line the garden's boundary walls, but within the garden itself, the flowers are smaller and more various. A generous, somewhat unsystematic collection of whatever Dona Rosa has grown across the decades. Camellias that bloom in midwinter when almost nothing else does. Agapanthus in their blue-purple summer abundance. The nasturtiums that seed themselves freely around the vegetable beds, and that she could eliminate if she tried hard enough, but has long since stopped trying, finding their cheerful orange persistence more companionable than troubling. Her husband Giulio was less tolerant of the nasturtiums. She has, since his death, allowed them considerably more latitude. She thinks of this occasionally, when she notices how thoroughly they have now established themselves, with a mild, affectionate amusement that is perhaps the most specific way she has found, across these 12 years, to continue the conversation. The sea and the fishermen. Let me tell you something about the fishing life that has shaped this island and this cottage, and Dona Rosa herself, so completely that it is impossible to understand any of them without understanding it. The Azores have been fishing the surrounding Atlantic since their settlement in the 15th century. First, the inshore waters, for the species that remain relatively close to the islands year-round. Then, as the fishing communities developed their skills and their vessels further and further offshore into the open deepwater Atlantic, where entirely different, larger, more demanding species lived. Sperm whales were hunted from these islands for nearly 2 centuries, a history that is now as far from current practice as anything imaginable. The last whaling station in the Azores closed in 1987, the same year the activity was definitively banned across Portugal's territorial waters. And the communities that had built much of their economy around this practice spent the following decades reinventing themselves in ways that have not always been straightforward or painless. Julio was a fisherman, as his father was before him, and his father's father before that, bluefin tuna in the open ocean, the large pelagic species that pass through Azorean waters seasonally, requiring longer trips and more demanding seamanship than inshore fishing, but yielding catches that have, across the decades, supported this island's small economy through periods when little else reliably could. He spent approximately a third of his married life at sea. This is simply how it was. Dona Rosa managed the garden and the cottage and the children across those long absences with the same practical, undemonstrative competence that fishing community women across the whole Atlantic world have always brought to exactly this kind of life. A competence so deeply normalized in this community as to have been largely unremarked upon by anyone, including, for most of her own life, Dona Rosa herself. She is more aware of it now, 12 years into a widowhood that has given her, among other things, a great deal of time to think about what her own life has actually consisted of. She is, on balance, satisfied, not without grief, but satisfied. What the island, TACHES, Dona Rosa has thought, across 84 years of living on this particular piece of volcanic Atlantic rock, about what the island has taught her. She would not, herself, use the word taught. She would say, more simply, that she knows certain things because she has been here all her life and paid attention. She knows that the Atlantic's weather is neither good nor bad in any permanent sense, simply changing always in ways that require continuous attention and continuous adjustment, and that the appropriate response to this is neither resignation nor heroism, but simply a patient, practical readiness to adapt over and over for as long as the adaptations are required. She knows that isolation, which people who have not experienced it sometimes imagine as deprivation, is also something else entirely. A particular quality of attention that comes from living in a community small enough that the individual matters, where you know by name everyone you pass on the single road, where the island's news is also your news, where the distance between you and anyone else on this rock is never, physically, more than a short walk. She knows that the sea gives and takes in proportions that do not always, in any individual life or any individual year, balance out equitably, and that the appropriate response to this truth is neither bitterness nor false acceptance, but something more complicated, more honest, a continuous engagement with what the sea actually is rather than what it would be convenient for it to be. And she knows this she would perhaps find most difficult to articulate if asked, that a life lived in one place deeply and attentively across many decades accumulates a specific richness that constant movement cannot produce, a richness that is less about what you have seen and done and more about how thoroughly you have come to know the particular quality of light that falls on a particular stretch of sea at a particular hour, in a particular season, in a way that no photograph and no description and no amount of subsequent memory can fully preserve. She knows this island, and it knows her in the way that places and people who have spent a long time together know each other. Without words, without needing words, the sweet bread, the massa cevada that Dona Rosa baked this morning sits under a cloth on the kitchen counter, its braided form still visible beneath the cloth's covering. She cuts a slice now for herself at this late evening hour, not quite supper, not quite dessert, simply the particular kind of comfort that a piece of good sweet bread provides when the evening is long and the kitchen is warm and the father is playing softly, and there is no particular reason not to. The bread is excellent. She has been making it since she was a girl, learning from her own mother, who learned from her own mother. The recipe passed down in the way that island recipes pass, not primarily through written instruction, though she does have her own handwritten version in the small notebook she keeps in the kitchen drawer, but through the accumulated physical knowledge of many repetitions, the exact feeling of a properly proofed dough under the hands, the particular smell of the kitchen when the bread is almost ready, the precise moment when the crust has achieved its correct deep golden color without crossing the line into the slightly darker shade that means it has gone just a little too far. She eats it slowly. She looks out the kitchen window at the dark. The ocean is a sound more than a sight tonight. The sky, too, overcast for stars. The horizon invisible in the general darkness. But the sound of the Atlantic arriving against the island's western cliffs, carrying clearly, even here, even through the kitchen's warm enclosure. She has been listening to this same sound for 84 years. She will listen to it for whatever years remain. This is not a thought she finds melancholy. It is simply the shape of her particular life, a life organized from beginning to wherever its ending will eventually be. around the sound of this specific ocean against this specific rock. The neighbors down the road, perhaps 200 meters, in a cottage almost identical to Dona Rosa's in its basic form. Whitewash, blue borders, low-ceilinged kitchen. Her neighbors, the Faria family, are themselves completing their evening. Old Manuel Faria, who has fished these waters for 50 years, and whose boat is the large blue one with the orange trim at the harbor's far end. Retired now, but still going down to the harbor each morning with the comfortable, companionable habits of 50 years of doing exactly this. His wife, Conciso, who is Dona Rosa's oldest friend on the island, has been for several decades. Since the births of children brought them together in the practical, unremarkable way that mothers of similar-aged children are often brought together by the shared daily logistics of that particular period of life. Their lights are on, visible from Dona Rosa's kitchen window as two warm points in the general darkness of the hillside. She knows, without needing to check, that Conciso will be clearing the dinner table about now, that Manuel will have moved to his chair by the window, his habitual position after the evening meal, from which he can see the harbor's lights and the ocean beyond. She knows the shape of their evening, the way she knows the shape of her own. They have been neighbors for 6 decades. There is very little in the daily texture of their respective lives that requires explanation between them anymore. This deep familiarity, the kind that comes only from long, continuous, mutually experienced time in the same small place, is one of the specific gifts that this island's smallness and this community's continuity have given her, and that she values among the island's various gifts, perhaps most particularly. The weather. The Azores have a reputation for changeable weather, sitting, as they do, in the middle of the North Atlantic, directly in the path of the various weather systems that rotate across the ocean's vast surface. The islands experience, across any given year, a remarkable range of meteorological conditions for their subtropical latitude. Fog, frequently. The clouds that form when warm, moist Atlantic air encounters the volcanic peaks can settle so thoroughly into the valleys and coastal areas that visibility drops to a few dozen meters. The island seeming, on these mornings, to have removed itself from the rest of the world entirely. Wind, often the Atlantic wind, which has no obstacles of any significance between these islands and the open ocean in most directions, arrives here with the full, undiminished force of its long, unimpeded run, capable of bending the trees that have grown up in the island's more sheltered valleys into permanent, leeward-leaning postures that visitors sometimes mistake for deliberate shaping, but also frequently sunshine. Clear, brilliant, mid-Atlantic sunshine, the kind that makes the ocean a shocking, saturated blue and the grass a green so intense it verges on the implausible, and the whitewashed houses so bright they seem almost to generate their own light. and rain. Good, generous, volcanic island rain. The kind that fills the cisterns and runs down the basalt slopes in small, clear streams, and keeps the hydrangeas in their perpetual, extravagant bloom, and makes this island as green year-round as any place at this latitude on Earth. Dona Rosa has lived through all of this weather. She has preferences. She prefers the clear days to the fog, prefers the mild southwest wind to the harder, colder northeast. But she carries no particular grievance against any of it, having long since understood that the weather here is simply the weather here, the companion of all her days, as present and as unchangeable, and as fundamentally what it is as the ocean itself. Tonight is calm, a light southwest wind, as mentioned. The fog, for once, held off. The stars would be visible, she knows, if the cloud cover overhead were a little less complete. Perhaps tomorrow, the photograph on the shelf above the kitchen table, among the ceramic plates, and a small wooden crucifix, and a ceramic rooster brought from mainland Portugal many decades ago. There is a framed photograph, black and white, a young woman and a young man, standing somewhere on this island. The basalt wall behind them is recognizable, and the particular angle of the hillside beyond, to Dona Rosa's eye, as a specific spot on the road above the harbor that still looks much the same today as it does in the photograph. The young woman is Dona Rosa, perhaps 20 years old. The young man is Giulio, perhaps 22. They are not quite looking at the camera. They are looking at something slightly to the left of it, some small distraction, a passing boat in the harbor below, or someone calling from off frame. And the expression on both their faces carries, as a result, a quality of unguarded naturalness that formally posed photographs rarely achieve. They look pleased with something, whatever it was. She does not remember specifically what day this was taken or what they were pleased about. She has looked at this photograph many thousands of times across the decades since it was taken, and she has stopped trying to remember. She simply knows that this was them on some unremarkable day, on this island, looking pleased with something that no longer has a name, but that is still, somehow, present in this photograph, in the particular quality of their two young faces turned together toward whatever it was. She does not look at the photograph tonight, but she knows it is there, on its shelf, as it has been for most of her adult life. The whaling history and its aftermath. Let me stay for a moment with the island's more complicated history, because Dona Rosa carries it in her body whether or not she speaks of it, and because the landscape itself still shows its traces. The old lookout post, a simple stone structure on the ridge above the village, now crumbling and largely forgotten, was once a whaler's vigil post where young men took turns watching the ocean for the particular disturbance on the surface, the particular shape of the blow that indicated sperm whales passing within striking distance of the island's small or powered hunting boats. The canoas, the long, narrow, open boats used in the Azorean whale hunt, were extraordinary craft in their own right, requiring skill, nerve, and exceptional seamanship from every man aboard. Launched from the island's small harbor into whatever sea conditions happened to prevail, without engines, pursuing quarry that outweighed any of the boats by orders of magnitude. Julio participated in the final years of whaling as a young man, before the industry's decline became unmistakable and irreversible. He did not talk about it often in the later decades of his life, partly because it belonged to a world that had already passed so completely as to seem almost fictional in retrospect, and partly because the complex moral reckoning that the wider world eventually undertook regarding whaling, a reckoning whose outcome was, in Julio's own final assessment, essentially correct, sat uneasily alongside his own memories of what had been, in the community's own understanding at the time, simply the necessary, dangerous, skilled work of sustaining a family on an isolated Atlantic island with limited alternatives. Dona Rosa holds this history the way the island holds its own geology, not separate from what she is, but part of it, layered beneath the present surface, the way the basalt is layered beneath the thin island soil. She does not speak of it tonight, but it is there, in the kitchen's quiet, in the ocean's sound from the west, in the darkness where the old lookout post stands on the ridge above the village. The letter from Brazil, in the kitchen drawer, beneath the handwritten bread recipe and the small collection of utility bills, and the notebook of telephone numbers whose entries are, in some cases, no longer current. There is a letter from her son, Luis, who has lived in Sao Paulo for 30 years now. He sends letters rather than emails, not from any principled technophobia, simply from a personal aesthetic that prefers the particular quality of contact that a handwritten letter offers over the more immediate, but somehow less substantial alternatives. Dona Rosa agrees with this preference, though she did not know she agreed with it until he made it visible by practicing it. The letter arrived last week, and she has read it 3 times, the first time quickly, for the factual content, the second time more slowly, for whatever was underneath the factual content, and the third time most slowly of all, in the kitchen, in the evening with her tea, for the simple pleasure of the handwriting, which is her son's handwriting, and therefore carries, in its particular loops and pressures and small idiosyncratic letter forms, a kind of presence that no other medium quite replicates. He is well. His children are growing. He is thinking of visiting in the summer. He does not say he misses the island, but the letter itself, its very existence, its preference for the slower and more deliberate form of connection, says something that the factual content alone does not. She will write back this week. She always does. The cistern beneath the cottage, in the cool volcanic darkness that the building's own foundation provides a cistern, old, hand-built from the same basalt as everything else on this island. Its interior lined with the lime rendering that makes it watertight. Its depth sufficient to hold several months' worth of rainwater collected from the cottage's roof through a simple guttering system that may have been installed in its original form when the cottage itself was first built. The cistern is full now, as it is most reliably full at this time of year, the autumn rains having generously replenished what the summer's relative dryness depleted. Water is not something Dona Rosa takes for granted, or has ever taken for granted. On an island this small, water management is as fundamental a concern as any other. The cisterns and wells that every property maintains, representing a deep, practical, carried-in-the-body awareness of the island's genuine vulnerability to prolonged dry periods, an awareness that the mainland's piped water supplies have made optional for many people. But that remains, on a remote Atlantic island, simply a basic fact of how one sustains a household across whatever weather the year brings. She checks the cistern's level occasionally by the particular sound the water makes when a stone is dropped through the access hatch, a rough measurement technique of considerable antiquity that she was taught by her own mother, who was taught by hers the skill of reading water depth by sound, representing its own small, specific, passed-down piece of island knowledge. Tonight the sound tells her, as she knew it would, that the cistern is full. The island has been generous this autumn. It usually is. The village doctor, once a fortnight, a doctor comes from the larger island by small plane, landing on the island's modest airstrip in the field above the village, spending 2 days seeing patients in the small health post before returning. Dona Rosa has been seeing this same doctor, a young woman, young by Dona Rosa's own generous definition, meaning somewhere in her 40s, for several years now, since the previous doctor retired. The relationship has developed over these regular visits, the particular warmth that medical relationships in small, remote communities often develop across enough time. A warmth that is professional on one side and grateful on the other, but that has also become simply friendly, the doctor having come to know, across these visits, enough of Dona Rosa's life and history and character that the medical appointments carry a dimension of genuine personal connection alongside their clinical content. Dona Rosa is, for her age, in remarkably good health. She attributes this, when asked, to having spent her life outside in good Atlantic air, eating what the garden produces and what the sea provides, walking up and down the island's steep road every day for 84 years, and never having had particularly strong reasons for significant stress. The island's particular scale of life and its particular communities' particular quality of support having provided, across a long life, a kind of ambient buffer against the most corrosive forms of urban anxiety. She does not, quite, believe this explanation herself. She suspects some portion of what she is has simply been given to her, but the explanation even if incomplete, is not inaccurate. The weather coming. Before she went to bed, Donna Rosa checked the barometer on the kitchen wall, an old instrument, its face clouded by age, its needle pointing, this evening, to a position she reads, from 60 years of observing this same instrument, and correlating its readings with subsequent weather, as suggesting that the current mild conditions will hold for perhaps another day, perhaps two, before whatever is building to the northwest arrives. She noted this without particular concern. Weather arrives and departs here on its own schedule, as it always has. What is building to the northwest will arrive when it arrives. She will close the garden's more vulnerable things against it when the time comes. She has done this before, many times. She is prepared. This readiness, not a dramatic, heroic preparation for catastrophe, but a simple, practical, accumulated readiness for whatever the ordinary range of island weather might bring, is perhaps the clearest single expression of everything the island has taught her about how to live, not in resistance to what comes, not in denial of it, simply ready, the sea before sleeping, before Donna Rosa goes to bed. And she will go soon, her own body clock set across 84 years to an island rhythm that has always made early rising natural and early sleeping necessary. She does something she has done on most evenings of her adult life, or as many evenings as the weather has permitted. She steps outside the cottage door, just for a moment, the night air, cooler than the kitchen, carrying the southwest wind and the sea smell and the faint hydrangea sweetness. She looks out at the ocean in the dark on an overcast night like this one. The ocean is not visible as a surface or a color, but simply as the direction from which the continuous, patient sound is coming. West, as it happens tonight, the big Atlantic swells arriving in their slow rhythm from the open water. She stands, she breathes, she does not think about anything in particular. She simply stands outside her own cottage door, as she has stood outside her own cottage door on countless similar evenings across a long life, and allows the island's particular combination of wind and sound and smell to remind her, in whatever wordless, embodied way such reminders actually work, where she is. This island, this rock, this specific, beloved, entirely ordinary, entirely irreplaceable Atlantic place. She goes back inside. She prepares for bed. The cottage AT night. The kitchen stove banked for the night. Its laurel wood reduced to glowing coals beneath their covering gives off its last quiet warmth into the cooling kitchen. The radio is off now. The fondue finished. The photograph is on its shelf. The massa cevada sits under its cloth, waiting for tomorrow's breakfast. The garden is dark beyond the window. The shapes of the fig tree and the nasturtiums and the cabbages invisible, present only in Donna Rosa's own thorough, decades-deep knowledge of exactly what grows where. The ocean continues its sound from the west. It will continue it through the night, through the morning, through every subsequent day and night, for as long as this island stands in this water, which is to say, for longer than any span of time that feels meaningful to calculate. The ocean has been making this sound against this rock since long before any cottage stood here, long before any Portuguese ships found this island, and any settlers brought their language and their bread recipes and their blue-painted window frames to this black volcanic shore. The sound was here before all of that. It will remain here after. Dona Rosa sleeps in the bedroom where she was born, in the bed where she spent her married life, in the cottage that has held her family across 6 documented generations. The island holds the cottage. The ocean holds the island. You are drifting. You are still in this cottage, in a sense, or somewhere very like it. The kitchen's warmth still present. The laurel smoke still threading gently through the air. The sound of the Atlantic arriving from the west, as it has arrived for longer than any human story can account for. Dona Rosa is sleeping in her room. The photograph is on its shelf. The hydrangeas are dark shapes along the garden wall. The harbor lights are few and steady down the slope. The ocean keeps its sound, all of it here, all of it holding you. Your breathing has slowed to match the ocean's own ancient, patient rhythm. The long, slow arrival of each swell against the distant cliffs, the pause, and then the next, and then the next, a rhythm so deep and so established that it functions for anyone who allows themselves to receive it as something very close to a lullaby for the entire nervous system. This is what a remote island cottage offers, if you allow yourself to receive it, even only in imagination, even only for this one quiet hour before your own sleep arrives. The particular piece of a place that has been itself, continuously and completely, for longer than any single life could measure. The reassurance of a person who has lived in one place long enough to know it, and to be known by it, in a way that makes the place and the person, after enough years, almost indistinguishable from each other. The sound of an ocean that does not need anything from you, that is simply there, patient and enormous and entirely reliable, arriving and arriving and arriving against the same dark rock it has always arrived against. You do not need to go anywhere tonight. You are already exactly where you need to be. Simply rest. The ocean will keep its rhythm. The cottage will keep its warmth. The island will keep its watch. The last things, the cottage rests in darkness, its kitchen stove cooling slowly behind its banked coals. The photograph is on its shelf. The sweet bread is under its cloth. The garden is dark. The nasturtiums folded for the night. The fig tree standing still in the southwest wind. Dona Rosa is sleeping. The sound of the Atlantic arrives from the west, as it has arrived every night of her life, as it arrived every night of her mother's life and her grandmother's life, and every generation before that, back to the first settlers who brought their blue-painted window frames and their bread recipes to this unlikely mid-Atlantic rock. The harbor lights are few and steady. Manuel Feria's blue and orange boat is at its mooring. Conciso's kitchen light is off now. The whole island is sleeping, or nearly sleeping. The hydrangeas are dark shapes along the road. The volcanic ridge above the village is lost in cloud. The ocean is everywhere. The cottage is dark. The stove's coals glow softly beneath their ash. The photograph is on its shelf. Two young faces turned toward something, pleased with something, still pleased. The massa cevada is under its cloth, waiting for morning. The garden is dark and still, the nasturtiums folded, the fig tree standing. Dona Rosa is sleeping in the room where she was born, in the cottage her family has held for 6 generations. The harbor is quiet, the boats at their moorings. The village is sleeping, house by house, light by light. The hydrangeas are dark along the road, blue, white, pale pink, unseen. Still there, the ocean arrives from the west, as it has always arrived, as it will always arrive. You are held tonight too, by this same patient, ancient, arriving sound, by the warmth of a cottage that has held a family across 6 generations, by the knowledge that some places simply are what they are, completely, continuously, without needing to be anything else. You are safe. You are warm. You are held in the cottage, on the island, in the middle of the Atlantic. The ocean will keep arriving all through the night, and you can simply rest. Good night, dear friend. Sleep well, sleep deeply. Good night, and